Hello everybody and welcome back to CK2. This is not CK2. Why would I? It's been a long time since I played CK2. This is Kerbal Space Program. Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are off to a fantastic start. Last episode, we just sent this rover to Gilly. It worked flawlessly. I don't care what you say. It was absolutely wonderful. No problems whatsoever. And it worked so well that we're going to do it again. Well, kind of. We're not going to take it to Gilly, we're going to take it to Eve, and we're going to have to rework its descent system. So, first things first, this should not have fuel. I think, well, What is the thrust to weight of this over Eve? Out of curiosity. The thrust to weight in, let's see, this would be stage 0. The thrust to weight would be 0.29. No, I don't think it's worth it. So we are going to strip off all of the fuel. We're going to remove the twitches, and we're going to need to rework our entry system. Now, that does mean that we're going to need to delete this fairing. And it's going to be interesting. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to save this as is. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this off and completely remove it. I do want to do a re-entry simulation here. Most specifically, I want to test to see if our reaction wheel that we have here is enough to hold us upright or just hold attitude when we're re-entering with just this. We're going to have no aerodynamics other than this heat shield. And honestly, the way that this heat shield works, I don't see a way that we could possibly have any sort of aerodynamic steering with this heat shield. So we're going to not save this, but we're going to put it out on the pad. And we are going to immediately attempt to hold attitude. Now, I don't expect to be able to necessarily hold attitude on this on Kerbin. That would be truly remarkable. We'll see if we can do that. And we also have to worry about our... Actually, this should be okay, shouldn't it? We'll also have to worry about our power generation on Eve proper. And that's something that we're definitely going to work on. So we're going to simulate an entry into the Eve atmosphere here. We're going to put ourselves at an altitude of about... We'll go for 120,000. Try to get a somewhat realistic re-entry speed. We are not easing this to ground, and let's see how this goes. So we are, of course, going to want to go to surface retrograde. And we are going to inflate our heat shield. And we are going to time warp down into the atmosphere. There we go. We're entering at about 900 meters per second. I feel like that's a fairly realistic number. Now, we don't have parachutes on this. I know that parachutes would be able to get this down to the surface, no problem. The only thing that we're looking to test here is if we can hold attitude. And our electric charge is going to drop, but we should have plenty of that. No concerns on that front. It's nighttime, so let's go ahead and turn on our headlights. Fantastic. I can see here we're already beginning to drift a little bit. Yeah, you can see this is going to struggle to hold attitude. We're about to see a big boom. We also had aero forces break our gigantors and our antenna. We were able to hold attitude good enough other than that. Okay, so that told me some interesting things. Some very interesting things. In fact, we can do this. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to carry our fairing all the way over there. So we would have... Okay, so that's on the floor now. Anyway, as I was saying, we're going to have to carry a fairing all the way over there, it would seem, if we're going to pull this off. So we would have this guy come up around there, and then we would bring in our fairing kind of like this. And this would end up being what we actually deliver to the surface. Let's see how that goes. Now, we will still need a parachute, and we will still need to deal with our power issue. We are not going to generate enough power for this with simply 2 gigantors on the surface of Eve. It is not going to happen. So, that also means this entire duration we're not going to have power unless we have external power on the stage that delivers this. So that is something that we will also have to consider. We'll put our altitude slightly higher up this time. I want to try an entry slightly faster. We'll try 150,000. And we will go to surface retrograde, and we will deploy our heat shield. There we go. And with a fairing, brought this entire way. It's a fair amount of weight, but it's not like we were short on Delta V. So let's just go ahead and accelerate this, and that should protect us during our re-entry, and then we can jettison this fairing once we're going at a safe speed. So this time we're going to enter the atmosphere going about 1200 meters per second, and let's see how that goes with the attitude. However, even if we start tumbling, in theory, with the fairing, that shouldn't matter. We're continuing to accelerate. We're about 1.4 kilometers per second right now. However, you can see our attitude shifting. We're gonna tumble, well, we're aerodynamically stable about right here, in theory. Look at those G-forces. Look at that deceleration. That works nicely. So parachutes for final delivery. At this point, we don't even need the fairing. We can ditch the fairing at this juncture, and we're completely fine. Okay, and then in theory we can ditch the heat shield. In reality, I don't know how well we'd be able to get away with that. We need to solve the power issue. There's no doubt about that. So let's revert this back. We know that 8 Gigantors might be enough to deliver the power that we need on the surface of Eve, maybe. Combine that with power delivery from the craft that we're docked to, our Ascent module. And I think that would be okay. I'm hearing the vehicle assembly... Ooh. Is this a bug? So, I see in the recording, it just looks black. On my screen, I'm still seeing the craft on Eve, but it's frozen. I think I may have broken it. Well, luckily, we didn't do anything, really. So, this is kind of awkward, but I'm going to Alt F4 KSP because we appear to have broken Kerbal Space Program, and we're going to relaunch it. Luckily, it doesn't take too long to launch, so it's not like it's rogue tech or something. Oh, that can occasionally take a ridiculous amount of time to launch. In the meantime, we can discuss our power solution. Now, I am definitely concerned about the deployment of the Gigantors in the fashion that we did previously. However, I was thinking, what if we found, say, alternative locations to put the Gigantors? We would need, in theory, approximately 8 Gigantors. In theory, approximately. So that's definitely something to consider. So let's get this loaded on in here. In theory, it shouldn't take too much longer. Expansion loading is complete. And we need at least one main chute on there. I'm not convinced we need drogue chutes, in all honesty, but at least one main chute is going to be pretty required. So let's go on back in now that we managed to thoroughly break the game. Wonderful. And let's get that power solution sorted and a proper landing solution. I think just to be on the safe side, I am going to do 2 drogue chutes and a main. I don't think it's necessary in the slightest. So this is our auto-saved version. And let's put the drogue chutes... Just thinking in terms of distribution here, because I want to drop basically upright. So let's put the chutes, the drogue chutes, in mirror symmetry over here. Where did that put it? Yeah, I didn't think that that would work. So let's remove symmetry, and we'll place it here, and then we'll need to snap these into position, which we will do. That is not with snapping on. Okay, I don't like that position. bring it out, and that'll, I guess, have to do... Bring this one up a little bit to not there, but rather there, and then bring it out. There, that should be symmetrical. I'm not super happy with those positions, but I guess they'll work. And then as far as the main goes, I was thinking about dropping the main right here to be as centrally located as possible without displacing our communitron. Something like that. Now, I would like to have an additional thermal control system, and I'm going to place that in right there. And then as far as the Gigantors go, I'm going to put in one, and we're going to center it approximately here. One there, I'm going to put in one there, and then one there, like so. And then I think that's it. So that is going to be 5 Gigantors. If that's not enough, then we'll just have to time warp, I think. So there's a descent solution, there's a power solution. Next, we're going to need a decoupler right here, a TD25. And I just want to... We're going to go through the full decouple sequence once we get all this done. And then we're going to lift this, of course, with a Jumbo 64. On this Jumbo 64, we will need some form of power. So we'll do, say, something along the lines of that. It's not going to generate much power, but theoretically we shouldn't need much power. Then we're going to utilize the Poodle to get there. This is basically the same craft that we had before, all things considered, but we needed to rethink and re-engineer our entry situation. So we need a TD-25 down here, and then we're going to have 2 Jumbo 64 tanks, lifting this with a mainsail. And this shouldn't be substantially heavier than what we had. It'll be a little bit heavier, but not hugely. So we should be completely fine to lift this with another pair of Clydesdales alone. And we'll not quadcouple them. Perfect. Let's go ahead and get in an engine here. This will be a, not a Pollux, but a Clydesdale. And we'll go ahead and move that on down. How far down does it need to go? About there works. Okay, we'll strut this in. Like that, as well as down here, just to make sure that we're nice and solid. Excellent. And then we'll put aerodynamic nose cones on this guy. Wonderful. And then we will put in our tail fins. We'll put them in... Gotta get down and around. There we go. We'll put them in, say, here. And we need to have our center of mass and our aerodynamic overlay. And we'll bring that on up to... Here should be reasonably okay. The center of mass will go down as we accelerate, and that should be reasonably fine. Okay, so let's go through our entire staging sequence here. I want to make sure that I didn't make a mistake this time. So we are going to fire our solid rocket motors. Those have plenty of thrust to get us out of the atmosphere, or very close to it. When they run out, we will ignite our mainsail and detach our solid rocket motors. Then we will, once that burns out, we will drop off this stage, and we will, at that point, simultaneously ignite our Poodle. Once the Poodle goes off, then we will drop off this stage. Now, we don't have any maneuvering other than this Poodle, and that's something that we need to keep in mind. But that stage then drops off, the heat shield would extend. The fairing we would definitely want to have be on our own. I think that we would have the drogue chutes go out separately, and then we would have the main chute go out, and then this decoupler, and then the airstream protective shell, which we would, again, do manually. Okay. This should do the trick. The question is, how are we... Well, the only question I have is one of power. Will this generate sufficient power? I think... I really wish we had RTGs. Unfortunately, we don't have that technology. This is all we've got to work with here. I think that I'm going to do a pair of 1x6s out over here, just to try to generate that little bit more power. And I'm also going to fill in some of this space up here with some photovoltaic panels. So I'm going to put one there and one there. I'm going to put one there. Now, some of these are going to be blocked. There's no doubt about it. Are we not symmetrically centered here? I'm definitely noticing that we've got more space here than we have here. Okay. I guess that's just a thing. So we will move this guy back to here then. Yeah, that's definitely off-center, isn't it? How did that happen? Let's go ahead and position... No, not you. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I want to move... Oh, we need to reroute this, don't we? Or more specifically, what we need to move is this part. That did look like that's actually fairly centered. Like that. And then recenter this guy like so. That buys us a little more space, for sure. Okay, so we'll put this guy up here. This guy goes over here. That's much more centered. And I think that we've got enough space for a couple of photovoltaic panels back here, one there, and perhaps one there. Approximately. There. Okay. So, I mean, I still don't think that this is going to be all that great in terms of power generation. Many of these will be blocked by the Gigantors, but maybe they'll help. A little bit. It's hard to generate power on Eve without RTGs. We'll leave it at that. Okay, so let's save this, and I think we're ready to get this started. Now, we're not going to warp the whole way there. So we're going to just get this going. We may warp it out of the solar system, or solar system. We may warp it out of the Kerbal system, and then just let it go from there. Oh, hello. We are apparently in 4K. Let's go ahead and bump that right on back. Fantastic, so that we have some measure of performance anyway. And let's go ahead and launch this. I'm going to revert this. Reason being, I want the SRBs to be rotated. So we're just going to grab these, no big deal. We're going to turn snapping on, and not that. Put that back. Thank you. We're going to grab... Not that. Put that back. Thank you. We're going to grab, instead, this guy. Excellent. And we'll make sure to have it in symmetry mode. Not that symmetry mode. We're going to make sure to have it in symmetry mode. There we go. And mount it right about there. That will do much more nicely. Okay, let's try this again. Should be okay, in theory. Well, we'll see if that theory is correct. It probably isn't. But hopefully I don't break the game again. It's okay. So we will throttle this up, although we don't have any throttle control with these SRBs. We could liquid fuel lift this. That is definitely an option. I should investigate at some point if that's a cheaper option. But for right now, off we go. Slightly slow off the pad, 1.47 thrust to weight. That's okay. We're not going to have any problem here. We're going to accelerate on up. We should be aerodynamically just fine. We're going to hop over into orbital mode and begin pitching over a little bit here. I'm a little concerned at the speed at which we were pitching there. Let's just bring it over a little bit more gently, shall we? Excellent. Our heading is drifting upwards a little bit. I'm just correcting that for right now. And our thrust to weight is getting a little too high. We're seeing some slowing from the atmospheric drag. That's to be expected. We can't throttle these engines down. It's completely okay. We're as throttled down as we can be right now. So we have about 20 more seconds of burn left in these. We're just heading on over towards that prograde marker. This guy right here, of course. And we are going to Lock to prograde starting now. Excellent. Our SRBs are burning out. Successful stage separation, and off we go. We're at plenty high altitude for our apoapsis, so other than that separation, we don't need to do any burning. Fantastic. So let's go ahead and get ourselves into orbit. It doesn't need to be that fancy of an orbit, just something vaguely along the lines of this, and we'll just go ahead and head over to the maneuver node. I almost said that we need to deploy our fairing, but we are keeping the fairing. We are keeping the fairing. And I need to not forget that we're keeping the fairing. So over we head. This is going to be, well, we actually don't know how long this is going to be. Now that we're in actual space, we know our final thrust to weight. So we can figure out at this point that our burn time is going to be at T-minus 30 seconds, plus it's going to be an additional, what is that, 19 seconds. So T-minus 49 seconds. Okay, sounds good to me. I don't want to time warp this because we're still turning here. So we're going to physics warp as we turn. There we go. We're much more closely aligned here. And we're going to go towards T-minus 49 seconds. And we will burn this right now. Excellent. So this is definitely a little bit heavier, but we have plenty of delta V to make this happen, I'm pretty sure. As far as the actual entry into the Eve atmosphere, that's going to be interesting. And I'm not sure how we're going to pull that off. We might want to have a particular height where we start our burn at, but that's going to not drop us straight in like our simulations. We want to land close to a particular site, although it doesn't have to be exact. So that's definitely something that we're going to need to think about. However, all we're going to do here for now is we're going to get started on our journey to Eve. And that will be exciting stuff. We're about halfway through our orbital burn. And that is just fine. We are so far completely nominal on our orbital burn. We have no issues here. We have about 500 more meters per second as of right about now to burn. And yeah, it looks fine. I would love to deploy our fairing. I keep wanting to do that. I'm just like, this is dead weight, but it's not. This is not dead weight. So, we need to not deploy that fairing. That needs to not happen just yet. So we are watching our periapsis numbers here. And there we go. That's good enough. We are in an orbit. I don't really care which orbit, just an orbit. So we're going to be targeting the moon, and we're going to do another gravity assist to get out of the Kerbal system nice and cheaply. And let's take a look at what that is ending up looking like. We're going to want to burn a little more prograde here, I think. We're going to want to delay this burn slightly, and maybe a little bit retrograde. How much can we get away with? That much. Okay. Looks good to me. This isn't an exactly efficient gravity assist, but it's close enough. So we'll go ahead and orient for that. And this is going to burn out all of this stage. So this is definitely a heavier load. You can tell that because of the fairing and the heat shield. It's a heavier load. We knew that, but we've still got plenty of delta V to make this work, in theory. So we're going to want to burn this at T-minus 36 seconds. Let's go ahead and warp towards that. Okay, so we're going to want to burn this in a moment here. Specifically, right about now. We are going to have a stage in this, and that's okay. That is factored in. And we'll just make sure that we are reaching escape velocity. That's 15 days, so honestly, I think we're okay. We're probably not going to warp that, and we're going to get started on the next section of this mission. So let's just finish off this particular burn. 260 meters per second left. We're now in our very efficient vacuum engine. Wonderful. I would still love to deploy this fairing and look at the monstrosity that we've created. I need to not. This is vital to our entry. Absolutely vital. In theory, this means that we may not actually need a heat shield or something like that, but we're going to utilize the heat shield for sure. So let's look at our final orbit here, and we're just going to look at what orbit we get that gets us a Kerbin escape. That's the only thing we are currently interested in, is a Kerbin escape. About another 20 meters per second in theory. Okay, how's that? Fine, that's fine. We'll save the 1.4 meters per second, and that is an escape trajectory. And with that, it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we are going to send another component of this mission. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I will see you all next time.